Hey guys, you got Crave here with my list of anticipated games for 2020. Well, at least the first half. The latter half of 2019 was a bit crazy in that a lot of good games came out which begged for my wallet's attention. While you have the more popular ones like Fallen Order, some fantastic yet not so well known titles also blindsided me. With that, it was a quote unquote difficult time to manage, and sadly I had to skip some games and hold them off for another time. With that, it looks like the trend is going to continue for the first half of this year, and I really will have to decide on which games to go for. So here are the games I'd ideally like to get my hands on for the first part of this year. When you talk about well-known franchises, there are a few like Final Fantasy. Square Enix, the developer, has opted to completely remake the beloved 7th game in the series. This brings back Cloud to the modern day in the Unreal 4 engine. The footage we've been seeing so far looks really good. Combat will remind you a little bit, well, I guess a whole lot, of the setup in Final Fantasy 15. It's all continuous, non-stop action, which removes the turn-based system. Well, you do have the pause option, but I think you get what I mean, that it's no longer really turn-based. That may not be a good thing for purists, but it's something it somehow excites me. I like the combat style of game number 15, and I'm hoping it translates well into this year's release. One more thing that might make people worry, including myself, is the episodic nature or format of the game. And basically, it's a very strange thing, but they made sure that the game would be so huge, and I guess that would be their reasoning for separating it into different release dates. This, I admit, is a bit bothersome, but let's see how they plan to execute this. The game initially comes out on PS4, but it's not a complete lockout. Other platforms will follow after the time exclusivity ends in the first quarter of 2021. When Trine 4 released last October 2019, I and my wife enjoyed the experience on the Nintendo Switch, so I went out looking for similar games and I came upon Ori and the Blind Forest. While I was a bit surprised that it was so different from Trine, I was pleased with how it all turned out. While Trine 4 was a colorful, lighthearted, and somewhat relaxing game all throughout, Ori was a bit different in spite of it sharing sometimes its colorful characteristics. Blind Forest was a really beautiful side-scroller, although a bit difficult at times. If Will of the Wisps is consistent, there should be a similar difficulty curve to the game. Now don't get me wrong, it's not a frustrating experience. The game just challenges you for your ability to time your movements and react quickly. In addition, Ori left me with some pretty strong feels. Even the first 5 minutes of that game, it was a very, very strong feeling. It left a very strong impression. It really felt heavy at times, even when there was minimal to no words being used. In addition, it's the art style and theme of the game that really brings about some really powerful experiences. I'm hoping for the same with Will of the Wisps. Now, this is going to be the game that I definitely won't be skipping. You've got the cyberpunk theme in the hands of the well-loved CD Projekt Red, or CDPR. Now, after the extremely well-received Witcher 3 coupled with the excellent practices of the developer, this first-person RPG is poised to take over my life and others as well. CDPR is not the type to hide their content, and from the many footage that's been circulating, this is definitely something special. Even their initial demo blew away many of the RPG lovers who had a chance to see the actual workings of the game. I'm definitely expecting some pretty high-level, amazing RPG goodness, and while it is best to get a feel of first-person format games firsthand, meaning you have to really experience it before you can make a judgment on how good the game is, the gameplay released and all the footage that's been circulating so far looks extremely promising. I honestly do wish that they had continued with the option to go for a third-person format, and mainly because my wife, it's something that she wants. She gets dizzy with first-person games, but this is what we're getting, and it is CDPR, and in CD Projekt Red, I trust. I like the premise and the simplicity of this game. Dungeons is not about the building and crafting you would come to expect from Minecraft. It's still blocky in appearance, but it now has the gameplay elements of something like Diablo. You've got the same isometric view, you've got the hordes of enemies that you have to fight, and you've got the equipment menu that you have to manage. So it basically plays out like a dungeon crawler. And with that, it also doesn't have to get lonely, as with Diablo and similar games, the co-op mode is available. So this lets you explore the randomly generated levels the game has to offer. Now, I can get pretty particular about graphics at times, but something about this game seems like it's a lot of fun even with the way it looks. I guess the fact that my son thinks it's a cool game does help in some way. In any case, Minecraft Dungeons is looking very much like another game I have to consider for this year. Continuing the legacy of games like Fallout 1 and 2, we have Wasteland 3. Now, it's one of those titles that may or may not be popular for some gamers. I suppose the isometric and RPG elements won't really be the problem here, but I guess it's going to be the turn-based format for the fights. Personally, I don't mind turn-based elements. It's very similar to the original Fallout games, and that's been, well, at least it's been updated to the modern times. Although it looks better, you still have the same targeting system which allows you to damage specific body parts of an enemy, and you pretty much have the same movement mechanics and restrictions as with XCOM games. The plot is pretty much an aftermath scenario of, well, terrible events, and you have to traverse the wastelands, and while doing that, there are of course interactions with NPCs, it's nice to see that there are some animations to it as opposed to just in the previous Fallout games, it was just all text. Honestly, I haven't played the previous Wasteland games, but from the footage I've seen of Part 3, it looks like there's the element of being able to gear up through looting, which I hope is similar to the Fallout games. If anything else, looting everything in sight should allow for some currency, which allows you to purchase new weapons. I remember ammo being a bit scarce in the earlier sections of Fallout 2, so I hope it isn't the same with Wasteland 3, or at least not too heavy in that aspect. In any case, this definitely looks like a worthy game to check out. And even before the month of May closes out, we have the highly anticipated Last of Us 2. Now, the first game, which focused on the male protagonist Joel, was such a big hit for Naughty Dog that Part 2 was never in question. It was just a matter of when Part 2 would come out and what the plot would be. Last of Us 2 focuses on Ellie, and it shows us a relatively older version of her. And when I say an older version of her, a really gritty and tougher version of the young Ellie. I like it for the fact that it isn't a far out and terrible transformation. She was always strong in the first game, but they didn't turn her into some monster from the footage I've seen, or at least based on that. It seems Ellie maintained her human side but was able to adjust to the harsh realities of the world she grew up in. She's become more resourceful and has definitely gotten better at taking down her enemies. I just hope the gameplay maintained the decent gunplay or improved it further. Now, there's really no question that the story is going to be amazing since it's a Naughty Dog product. Just remember that. They made the first Last of Us and other greats like the Uncharted series. Now, before we close off this video, I want to mention two other games that are coming out this year but have no specific release dates as of the time I'm doing this. The first one is Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines. It's an action RPG game, well, with a vampire theme. Now, there has been a lot of footage circulating around it, but there has been no specific release date. Now, the other one I'm looking forward to a little bit is the LEGO Star Wars Skywalker Saga. Now, it promises to encompass the stories of all the 9 films, and it seems it will go for a very large and open world, which means traveling between different star systems. In any case, I was just thinking they might release these 2 games in the first half of the year, or they may not. The way the first half is packed, and I don't know, maybe it's better off that way. Maybe it's a good thing that they release later on in the year. Anyway, that's pretty much it for the games I'm looking forward to in the first part of this year. What's on your list? Let me know in the comment section below, and I will see you in the next one.